I had always thought we had it all. I thought we were the couple who had figured it out, the kind that could endure the ups and downs of life together, stronger every time. We'd been together for 4 years, an eternity for some, but for us, it felt like the beginning of something bigger. Every morning, we woke up beside each other, shared quiet moments over coffee, and built plans for our future. There was a sense of security in knowing we'd always be there for each other, that nothing could break the bond we shared. People around us said we were the perfect couple. They marveled at how well we understood each other, how effortlessly we communicated, how our lives seemed to be so perfectly intertwined. We never fought, at least not in any significant way. Sure, there were moments of stress, but nothing that threatened the foundation we'd built. We would talk it out, always with patience and kindness, and come out of it stronger. That's what I believed. That's what I told myself. At the core of our relationship was trust. I never questioned his commitment to me, or my loyalty to him. We had a quiet understanding that love meant being honest, even when it was hard. That trust meant not keeping secrets, even the small ones. And for years, I didn't have a reason to question that. But even in the best relationships, there's an undercurrent of tension that sometimes goes unnoticed. Little things, small signs that you push to the back of your mind because you want to believe the best in the person you love. I noticed him becoming more distant over the past few months. It was subtle. He would stay late at work more often, or his texts would become shorter, less personal. But I brushed it off. Life was busy. We were both juggling so many things. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe I was reading too much into it. I kept telling myself that it was nothing. We were still in love, still had so many good moments together. He would hold my hand, kiss my forehead, and tell me how much he appreciated me. We were planning trips together, talking about the future. He made promises that we'd be there for each other no matter what, and I believed him.
There was no reason not to.
But deep down, I could feel a shift. It wasn't something I could put into words at first, just a vague feeling that something wasn't quite right. Still, I clung to the belief that everything was fine. I didn't want to see the cracks, didn't want to acknowledge that maybe I wasn't enough. After all, we had been through so much together already. We had built a life together. That had to mean something, didn't it? There were days when I would wake up next to him and feel a sense of contentment wash over me, but then there were moments when I caught him staring off into space, lost in his thoughts, as if he were somewhere else entirely. I tried to shake off the nagging feeling. I didn't want to be the person who overreacted or saw problems where there were none. But then there were the small signs that I couldn't ignore anymore. He began being more secretive with his phone, keeping it face down on the table or taking it with him into another room when he thought I wasn't looking. And then there was the change in his demeanor. He didn't seem as interested in spending time with me. The quiet nights we used to have watching movies, talking about our day, began to feel forced. His attention was elsewhere. I remember one evening in particular. We had plans to go out for dinner, a tradition we had started early in our relationship. It was supposed to be a nice night, just the two of us. But he canceled last minute, citing work. That wasn't unusual, he had a demanding job. But something in his tone felt off. There was no urgency in his voice, no real remorse. It was like he didn't care. That's when the first seed of doubt was planted. I brushed it off that night, but the feeling lingered. I told myself it was just a phase, that we would bounce back. But in my gut, something told me that things weren't as they seemed. I didn't want to acknowledge the truth because doing so meant facing the possibility that my perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. I still remember the days before everything changed, when I could have sworn everything was right in the world. The nights where we laughed until we cried, the mornings when we woke up wrapped in each other's arms, feeling like the world couldn't touch us. But something was shifting, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And in the back of my mind, I began to fear that the love we shared might not be enough to protect us from the forces that were slowly creeping into our lives. The truth was there, just beneath the surface, but I wasn't ready to see it.
Not yet.
It wasn't until that day that everything came crashing down. I had no idea what was about to hit me, no idea how quickly my world would fall apart. It started as a normal morning, with nothing out of the ordinary. He kissed me goodbye, told me he'd be home late again, and I went about my day. But there was something in the air, a strange heaviness I couldn't shake off. Something felt wrong, and it wasn't just my mind playing tricks. I could feel it deep in my chest. It was around noon when I saw the text. It wasn't meant for me. I didn't mean to snoop, but my curiosity got the best of me. His phone was on the counter, unlocked, and his message notifications were visible. I told myself I wouldn't look, but then I saw her name pop up. And then the words, "I miss you." My heart sank instantly. I didn't know what to do with myself. I told myself it could be nothing, just a harmless message, maybe from friend. But deep down I knew better. I had felt it for weeks, and now it was undeniable. The shock of seeing those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't breathe for a moment. The air in the room suddenly felt thick and suffocating. I stared at the screen, unable to move, my fingers trembling as I held the phone. I knew I should put it down, walk away, but I couldn't. I read the message again, and again, and again. Each time, it felt like I was sinking deeper into a hole I couldn't escape from. I tried to tell myself it was a mistake, that it didn't mean what I thought it did. But my mind kept circling back to the obvious truth. There was no denying it now, he was cheating on me. I had always trusted him, believed that our relationship was different, that we were invincible. But now, everything I thought I knew felt like a lie. My heart began racing as I thought of all the little signs that had been there all along. The late nights, the strange behavior, the secrecy. But I hadn't wanted to face them. I hadn't wanted to believe that this could happen to us. I tried to push those thoughts away, but now they were impossible to ignore. I spent the next few hours in a haze, my mind spinning in circles, trying to make sense of it all. How could he do this to me? We had built something real, something I thought was strong enough to withstand anything. I couldn't help but wonder what I had missed, what had changed in him, in us, to make this happen. Was I not enough? Was I not good enough? The questions swirled in my mind like a storm, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was drowning. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront him. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew I couldn't let this go unanswered. When he walked through the door later that night, I could see the guilt written all over his face. He didn't even try to hide it. I didn't need to say anything. His eyes told me everything. The hours after the confrontation felt like they were stretching into infinity. I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened, about what he had said, and most importantly, about how everything in my life had just shifted. Nothing made sense anymore. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? The questions burned in my mind, relentless and unforgiving, but no answers could fill the hollow ache that had settled in my chest. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my mind, every word, every gesture, every moment where I had felt something was off but ignored it. It all seemed so clear now, as if I should have known, should have felt it coming. But it hadn't been obvious, not at first. He hadn't been outwardly cruel or neglectful. He was always charming, affectionate when it suited him. He'd never acted like someone who was capable of betraying me, of shattering everything we had built together. That's what made it hurt so much. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the deception, the lies that had been woven into every interaction, every conversation, every promise. I could feel a weight pressing down on my chest, a suffocating feeling that made it hard to breathe. Every breath seemed shallow, like I was drowning in this new reality that had been thrust upon me. How could I move forward knowing this? How could I even look at him the same way? Every time I tried to focus on something else, my mind would race back to him and her, to the messages, to the betrayal. I couldn't escape it. And then there was the anger. It was a slow burn at first, a quiet rage that simmered beneath the surface. But as the hours passed, it grew. I was angry at him for what he had done, for tearing apart something I had thought was unbreakable. But I was also angry at myself. How had I let this happen? How had I trusted him so blindly? I had given him everything, and in return, he had destroyed it. The thought of him with someone else made my stomach turn, a sickening feeling that made me want to scream, to do anything to release the rage building inside me. But I stayed silent, holding it all in, because nothing I said or did could change what had already happened. I tried to talk to him. I wanted answers. I wanted to know why. Why her? What was it about her that I didn't have? What had I done wrong? But every time I asked, every time I looked at him with those questions in my eyes, all he could do was apologize and repeat how much he regretted it. His words meant nothing. They were hollow, empty. They couldn't undo the damage. Nothing could. I spent hours thinking about whether or not I could forgive him. The idea of forgiveness felt like a betrayal in itself, like I would be allowing him to hurt me again, giving him permission to repeat his mistakes. How could I ever trust him again? How could I ever see him the same way after what he had done? The very thought of him touching me, of him being with someone else, made my skin crawl. How could I share the same space with him, let alone rebuild a relationship that felt so broken, so beyond repair? But there was a part of me that didn't want to give up. A part of me that still loved him, that believed in the possibility of change, in the hope that we could somehow fix this, that things could go back to the way they were. I hated that part of myself, the part that still cared, that still wanted to believe in the person I had loved. But it was there, lurking beneath the anger, beneath the pain. I had invested so much in this relationship, so many years of my life, so many shared dreams. Was I really ready to throw all of that away? I reached out to friends, trying to make sense of my emotions, but they only offered sympathy. They didn't understand. How could they? They weren't the ones who had been betrayed. They didn't know what it felt like to have everything you believed in ripped away from you in an instant. I kept asking myself how long I could keep going like this, living in a constant state of turmoil, caught between love and resentment, between hope and despair. The worst part was the uncertainty. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know whether I could ever move past this, whether I could ever trust him again, whether he could ever make up for what he had done. I didn't know if I was strong enough to leave, to walk away from everything we had. The idea of being alone was terrifying, but the idea of staying with him, of continuing to live a lie, was even worse. It was a constant battle in my mind between wanting to forgive him, wanting to move past this, and knowing deep down that I might never be able to. Every time I looked at him, I saw the person who had betrayed me. Every time I heard him speak, all I could hear were the lies. I was stuck in this emotional limbo, unable to move forward, unable to let go. I was caught between the person I thought I knew and the person who had hurt me beyond repair. I couldn't stop crying. The tears were endless, a steady stream that felt like they would never stop. Each tear seemed to carry with it all the pain I had been holding inside, all the love that had been crushed under the weight of his betrayal. And yet, through it all, I still found myself clinging to the hope that somehow, someway, we could find a way back to each other. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss. Every part of me wanted to step back, to retreat into the safety of what we had before. But I knew I couldn't. The damage was done, and I couldn't unsee what I had learned. Every time I thought about him, about what had happened, I felt a wave of nausea, a pit in my stomach that made me question everything. Could I really forgive him? Could I live with this betrayal? Or would I always feel like something had been broken beyond repair? The days after the confrontation were a blur. He apologized endlessly, pleaded with me to give him another chance, promised me that he had learned from his mistake. But those words meant nothing. They were just that, words. They didn't change the reality of what he had done. The trust we had built over the years, the bond we had shared, had been shattered in an instant, and I couldn't pretend that it was still the same. Every time he touched me, I flinched. Every time he spoke, all I could hear were the lies. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to walk away, to sever ties and never look back. I knew I deserved better than this. I deserved someone who would never hurt me, someone who valued me enough to not betray my trust. But another part of me still loved him, still held on to the idea that we could find a way to make it work. I kept asking myself if it was possible to forgive him, if we could rebuild what we had lost. Was it worth the risk? Or would it always feel like I was living a lie, pretending that things could go back to the way they were? I talked to friends, family, trying to get some perspective, but everyone's advice seemed so different. Some told me to leave him, to never look back. Others said that people make mistakes and maybe he could change, that I should give him a chance. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know if I was strong enough to walk away from everything we had, or if I was just clinging to the idea of what we used to be. In the end, I had to make a choice. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when I knew it wasn't. So I asked myself one simple question. Could I live with him, knowing what he had done, knowing that he had betrayed me?
The